It's been a busy week for the Noles. Lots of news and lots of things to talk about. Obviously, being able to keep Mike Rell away from Alabama, but Florida State has also been making a ton of noise in the transfer portal this week, adding 3 pickups, 2 from Alabama and 1 from Florida. I want to talk about these guys a little bit. I'm sure you guys have some questions, so let's get into it. I want to start with Roydell Williams because he's actually one of the guys I'm most excited about adding into this offense. Transfer running back from Alabama, actually the 4th Alabama transfer that Florida State has brought in, along with Terrence Ferguson, who we'll talk about here in a few, as well as Earl Little Jr. and Malik Benson. Definitely got to love a little Tuscaloosa to Tallahassee pipeline. Roydell is a 5'10", 215-pound guy. Was actually a top 100 recruit in the 2020 class, and comes from Hueytown High School, which is the same high school that Jameis Winston played for. Transfers into Florida State with 1 year eligibility remaining, so he brings a lot of experience with him. In his career at Alabama, he rushed for over 1,100 yards with 11 touchdowns. In 2023, he had 560 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, he was obviously a part of a deep rotation there at running back for Alabama, but he had some major plays for the Tide. He had a score to tie it back up for them against LSU. He also had scores against Georgia and Auburn this season. I've watched some of this kid's highlights, and I actually really like this pickup. He's got big play potential for sure, and he's not at all afraid to lower his shoulder and run through guys. So I think he's closer to a Trey Benson type of guy, and it could be a great complement piece to Toa Philly, having a mix of power and speed. And we all know how Mike Norvell loves to rotate guys, especially at running back. I gotta say, I think this kid is primed for a breakout season here at Florida State, especially if we can strengthen up that offensive line a little bit. That's a bit of an Easter egg there. We'll talk about that here in a second. But we obviously have to see how he gets through the spring and into fall camp. But he may very well be RB1 come the fall. So a huge addition. Again, a great compliment piece to Lawrence Toafili. And I think a great guy to come in and allow Cam Davis some time to develop. Now, with RB1 expectations, you got to have some dudes up front to block it up for him, right? We all know the offensive line had its struggles at times in 2023, especially with depth and remaining healthy. We really went through most of that season pretty banged up along the offensive line. And it's clear that it's been a point of focus for Alex Atkins as he's brought in a very good high school class with guys like Jonathan Daniels and Manasseh Itet. But they're attacking that position through the portal as well. And on Thursday, they got one of their top targets in Terrence Ferguson, a 6'4", 320-pound interior offensive lineman. This was another one of those kids that Florida State heavily recruited out of high school. He was the number 58 overall player in the country for the 2021 class. Florida State ended up finishing second there, but doesn't matter because he ends up in Tallahassee anyways with 2 years eligibility remaining. He entered the portal a couple weeks ago and visited Florida State pretty soon after entering. He also took a visit to Oklahoma, so at one point it looked like he could kind of be going anywhere or possibly end up just making a return to Alabama. Alabama was fighting pretty hard to keep him, but then with Nick Saban retiring, I think it just helped him make up his mind and ultimately choosing Florida State to finish his career with. This is another guy I think could be a starter for you in Ireland against Georgia Tech. He's got great size. He's been in Alabama's strength and conditioning program for the first 3 years of his career. You got to love that. And he's even played in games for the Tide in 2023. So he has experience and yet another deep position room for them. I think he's a quick impact guy, and I think that's the main reason the staff pressed so hard to land him. Now, another transfer guy that committed to the Noles this week is Richie Leonard, an offensive lineman from the Florida Gators. He comes in at 6'2", 310 pounds. Started every game for them this season. I'm not going to say this is an elite pickup. Obviously, Florida's offensive line wasn't great in 2023. He graded out okay, according to PFF. But for one, he really was their most consistent offensive lineman all year. According to Umam Nielen on Twitter, he actually had the best season out of anyone on that offensive line. And he even said that Richie was their most reliable guy. So, to that point, though, I don't think their strength and conditioning or just player development as a whole down here in Gainesville is all that great. I'd be really excited to see this guy come into Florida State and let Alex Atkins develop him. He's more than likely a depth piece, but he could battle for a starting job. He is a grad transfer, so he has a lot of experience. So either way, it's a quality add, whether it's for depth or maybe he takes another step in a better program and battles for a starting job. But Florida State has clearly attacked positions of need here in the portal so far. I know they got off to sort of a quiet start there in the beginning and had some folks worried, but one thing Mike will always do is dominate the portal, and they've now surged to a top 3 portal class with, in my opinion, some really great gets and elite talent that I think will be great contributions to this team as they look to replace a lot of production that they lost to the NFL. Obviously, I don't think Mike Norvell wants to take a step back in 2024. I think he absolutely wants to rebuild this team, reload, and still compete to win the ACC and compete for the new 12-team playoff. I think the additions you're seeing here are massive steps in that direction, and I don't even think they're close to done yet. I really said I thought they'd maybe take 6 to 8 portal guys, and at this point they've already taken 13, 9 of which are 4-star transfers in the rankings, 4 of them from Alabama's roster, and I can honestly see them bringing in a few more. There's still quite a few Alabama players out there. Florida State still really needs a linebacker or two, and I think they even go get another defensive tackle. So still more work to do there. There's been back-to-back commitments. Florida State is just laying them down in the portal right now. I feel like I've done nothing but commitment videos here in January, but I'm not mad at it. But that's exactly why you guys want to like this video and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you can keep up with all the big FSU news, portal additions. We talked about the stuff with Mike's new contract. We have some good 2025 recruiting stuff coming soon. So lots of good content coming up that you guys definitely going to want to stay tuned for. I'm sure we'll be back soon. Go Noles.